Hey everyone, today we're going to be trying something a little different in a project that we're calling Console Conspiracy. And if you're subscribed to our sister channel, Frederator, you probably already know what this is all about since it's basically the same as our long-running cartoon conspiracy. If you aren't familiar though, in this show we're going to be exploring some of gaming's unanswered questions. And for our first theory, we're starting with one hell of a claim, and it's actually a lot more complicated than it sounds. Do Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto exist in the same universe? Here's how this is going to work. We're going to start by taking the evidence that seems to support this theory, and then we're going to break it all down later and see how it holds up against some of the evidence that doesn't fit the theory so well. We might not come up with a definitive answer, but the main idea is to present our findings to you and then let you be the judge of the validity of this theory in the comments. And while we're going to majorly spoil the original Red Dead Redemption in this video, we'll only touch on some minor story details in both GTA 5 and Red Dead 2, and we won't be getting into any big story spoilers. So don't worry if you haven't finished Red Dead 2 yet. No one spoil it in the comments. So when it comes to Red Dead and GTA, if you've just played them and you haven't thought about it too hard, I don't think it's the biggest stretch to just assume that these two games take place in the same universe. They're produced by Rockstar Games, and despite both of them hitting on very heavy themes, they maintain a pretty irreverent air full of, well, ultraviolence. Based on that, you could probably make the argument that how the world of GTA operates was informed by this reckless disregard of human life displayed in Red Dead, which is more of a reflection of our perceptions of the Old West based on old movies. The historical frontier was a lot less violent than Red Dead.
Have you ever robbed a stagecoach?
No, never. Who would have even thought? Of course I robbed a goddamn stagecoach.
I mean, look at Red Dead's world, and then look at GTA's world, a world that, compared to ours, is rife with significantly more crime and cops that stop caring about your mass-murdering, bazooka-carrying ass if they can't find you after 30 seconds. Kinda like how in Quentin Tarantino's movies, the highly public climax of Inglourious Basterds caused the rest of the world to embrace ultraviolence after the Second World War. That's true, by the way. Quentin Tarantino actually confirmed that. It's not historical, but, you know, that's how it is in his movies. Yeah, that was perfect. That was a great take. Let's keep that. But, well, it's a cool observation. It's not really what we're here for today. We want something tangible, common people, places, events, definitive proof that these two worlds are the same, which is naturally going to be pretty hard since these games have been separated by over 100 years. And just to make things even more complicated, the GTA games have sorta unofficially been separated into three distinct universes. They are the 2D universe, which covers GTA's 1 and 2, the 3D universe, which covers every game released between 2001 and 2008, and the HD universe, which covers everything from GTA 4 to present day. For the purposes of this video, though, we're gonna stick with the HD universe since those are the games that were released around the same time as both of the Red Dead Redemption games. Now, there have been a few small Easter eggs that have gotten people to say that GTA, Red Dead Redemption, even LA Noire all share the same world. But to take some of these and say that they're hard evidence is... I mean, one of these Easter eggs is John Marston's face appearing in some toast in LA Noire. Allegedly. I mean, I can kinda see a cowboy, but it's about as convincing as any Jesus toast that I've seen. And on top of it not really being evidence of a shared world, it also doesn't really make any sense since John wasn't any sort of religious figure or messiah. Okay, maybe he was to us, but he sure as hell wasn't one in his own story. Okay, so what else have people pointed to? Well, there's a rumor that Ned Luke, who plays Michael DeSanta in GTA 5, also played a character in Red Dead 2. Rumors started swirling when this familiar face was found in a photo of Colm O'Driscoll's gang. Looks an awful lot like one of GTA 5's player characters, huh? Though Ned Luke has chimed in on this matter, saying that this is not the character that he played. That said, his name still appears in the credits of Red Dead 2, but as of now, his character hasn't been found in the wild. And the fact that Luke confirmed that his vocal performance was cut out of the game doesn't really help things. And it's been a few months now, so the odds are skewing towards him never being found in the game, if he's in the base game at all. And even so, just because two characters look similar doesn't mean that they share the same universe. See also any actor who's ever played more than one character in their career. Although that would make Hollywood a lot more interesting. Staying with Michael though, the GTA character does share a last name with Vicente DeSanta, a prominent NPC in Red Dead Redemption 1, but this whole connection falls apart quickly when you remember that DeSanta isn't Michael's real last name. One thing that GTA 5 and Red Dead have in common though is place names, particularly the streets in Los Santos matched with the locations in Red Dead. Cholla Springs Avenue compared to the region, Armadillo Avenue compared to the town, the neighborhood of Strawberry compared to the town. There's even the Escalera Rent-A-Car referencing the area of the same name in Red Dead 1. But okay, let's put a pin in these ideas because we're gonna be coming back to the geography of these games a little later. Before we get to that though, let's look at a few more things. Building up to the release of Red Dead 2, GTA Online hosted an event to to unlock a revolver. A revolver that Rockstar Games described in the event's announcements as a relic from the Old West, and through this quest you also receive an email from someone named Vanderlinde, which is a pretty obvious reference to Dutch Vanderlinde, the notorious gang leader of the Red Dead series. But this is marred with its own problems. Namely, should this count as hard unifying evidence even though it was created solely to promote Red Dead Redemption 2? I'll leave that up to you, but it still puts us in a bit of a tricky spot. Even with Rockstar's affinity for Easter eggs, we've been left with surprisingly little to actually connect these two worlds. But there is at least one more thing that we need to bring up when talking about this theory, and I think for the first time in human history, Scientology is gonna save the day. Okay, maybe not exactly Scientology, but a very similar religious cult. In GTA 5, there's this cult that's a pretty obvious parody of Scientology called epsilonism. And if you play GTA 5, you might recognize it as Michael is able to join the church should the player so choose. But this cult goes a little deeper than just some GTA 5 side missions. They've got their own website, which lists their rules and beliefs in great detail. Their belief system is heavily influenced by something called Kiflam. It's all pretty standard space cult religion stuff, but then you get to something interesting when reading about their 12 tenets of Kiflam. Quote, aliens exist and are present on Earth. If you have a birthmark, you may be descended from Kraf, the famous emperor of the fourth paradigm. The site even gives us a handy-dandy guide of what one of these possible descendants might look like. Now, Red Dead 2's been shown to have its own alien cult, but outside of that, it looks like the 19th century frontier might be home to one of the Epsilon program's own. Meet Francis Sinclair, one of the fine folks that Arthur Morgan might run into on his adventure, but he's a bit of an oddball. For one, he asks Arthur to find him a bunch of little rock carvings for seemingly no reason.
Little rock carvings.
Yeah, exactly, little rock carvings.
He also speaks in what seems to be an anachronistic way, almost like someone plucked him out of the 1920s, referring to Arthur as sport, spouting 20 slang, and acting all frenetic like he was wound like an 8-day clock, see? And Arthur, who is living firmly in the 1890s, has no idea what Francis is talking about. But once you track down all of these rock carvings, some of which were a real pain in the ass to find, thanks for nothing, Francis, you might notice some of them are a little odd. Some depict ancient wonders, futuristic metropolises, zeppelins, all manner of fantastical things. And once you find them all and return to Francis's shack, you discover a woman living there. When Arthur inquires about her husband's whereabouts, she tells him that her husband's been dead for a while now. However, she has with her her newborn son, Francis. And wouldn't you know it, he possesses the same birthmark that adult Francis had when you first meet him. Examine the wall of the cabin, and it's not hard to figure out that Francis was a time traveler all along, explaining his 1920s language and behavior as he would have been in his 20s in the, well, 20s. So with this character possessing the same birthmark that's visible on the Epsilon program's website, can we say with confidence that Francis Sinclair is a descendant of Kraf, the famous emperor of the fourth paradigm? As far as Rockstar Games go, this seems like the most concrete proof out there. Remember, Epsilonism was established in GTA's HD universe, referenced in 4 and featured heavily in 5. So we've gone through all of this, and so far, all of our evidence towards Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto, two of the biggest franchises sharing the same world, are some street names, a wacky cult, and a time traveler. And we touched on it before, but we haven't really covered the biggest hurdle in this theory yet. Remember how I said we were going to come back to the geography of these two games? We're going to do it now because these worlds are nothing alike. Namely, real places like New York and Chicago exist in the world of Red Dead, but in GTA, the New York parallel is named Liberty City. Not to mention Los Santos, which is a lovingly detailed parallel of Los Angeles, you know, if the name wasn't too big of a tip-off. But while there is very little evidence that GTA exists in the same world as Red Dead, despite what I just said, there isn't much to contradict it either. While much of the history in Red Dead is similar to America, things like slavery being abolished at the end of the Civil War, there's little information on how that history may have deviated from ours after the events of Red Dead, affecting things like place names or city names. A historical deviation like that, or some sort of geography that is like our worlds but not exactly the same, could explain why Liberty City, a city that's functionally and aesthetically supposed to be the same as New York City, would have such a vastly different name. On top of that, there's some sparse evidence that even though Los Santos and San Andreas exist in the world of GTA, that somehow didn't stop the state of California from existing in some capacity. A California accent is mentioned in the radio ad for the movie Dragon Brain in GTA 4.
I'm only a humble blacksmith with a California accent.
And a vintage California license plate is visible on a wreck at GTA 5 Stab City. Are these overly oversights or continuity errors are just the result of them licensing a bunch of tracks without going through and making sure that they don't mention places that might not exist in the world of GTA? Yeah, probably, but they're in the game, which makes it canon to us. So with the evidence that not just any California, but our California existed in the world of GTA 5, I mean, again, look at that license plate, we have a bit more ground to stand on when we say that Liberty City might not just be a New York City parallel, but simply the New York City with a slightly different name and geography. Or that maybe both Liberty City and New York City exist in this version of America. But I don't know, you might think that that's too silly. I mean, I'm on the fence about it myself. Wait, would that also mean that there's two New Jerseys? Because Alderney is very clearly supposed to be New Jersey. But even with that small gain, when you include Red Dead, this turns into a way bigger mess. Because the games take place in America, sure, but where in America? The game's map and biomes are all over the damn place. Saint Denis and the surrounding swamps and bayous seem reminiscent of states like Louisiana down to the French influence of the area. Then west of that, in West Elizabeth and New Austin, you've got the Mexican border and areas that feel like they're meant to evoke someplace like Texas or New Mexico or Arizona. Okay, we're looking good so far. And then you head up north to Ambarino, which is characterized by snow-capped mountains and glaciers? So somewhere around here, and then there's Roanoke Ridge, which feels like it's supposed to represent the Appalachian Mountains, so here? Not to mention that none of the states or territories in Red Dead, like New Austin or Lemoyne, exist in the world of GTA, that we know of at least. The only overlap there would be those aforementioned street names in GTA 5, and it's some pretty good supporting evidence, but it's not exactly substantial. In the end, it looks like the geography problem is always going to come down to personal preference, since Rockstar has made it so ambiguous just how accurate to America each of these worlds are. Well, that's kind of an anticlimactic way to end the episode. Tell you what, okay, before we leave, let me give you one more thing that might skew your opinion towards believing this theory is true. There's one more Easter egg that people often point to, and it's this book found in GTA 5 called Red Dead and written by one J. Marston, a pretty on-the-nose reference to John Marston's story. Though it's highly unlikely that John wrote this book for a number of reasons. For one, he was never shown to be very literary or interested in reading at all, and it's not like he could have written this book after the events of Red Dead 1. But if his son, Jack Marston, wrote the book, that makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? Think about it. If John wrote the book, why not just write John Marston on the spine of the book's model? It would still be just as overt a reference to the game. But if the author is Jack Marston, not only does that prevent the first Red Dead game from being spoiled to those who played GTA 5 but not Red Dead, it also makes more sense from a character perspective. Jack has been shown to be interested in reading from a very young age in both Red Dead games, particularly Penny Dreadfuls, pulpy crime stories. We know this as his interest is mentioned several times in Red Dead 2, notably when he requests one of these books from Arthur. And the stories in those books are written to be full of excitement, detectives, criminals, adventure. Say, for example, the waning days of an Old West outlaw as the world marched on, leaving him behind. The life of his father, a man that Jack respected so greatly he hunted down his killer years after the fact. And to further cement his father's legacy, he chronicled his life in a pulpy book of his own writing, which would eventually be published and find its way to a bookshelf in Los Santos. In the end, there's definitely some solid evidence that both Red Dead and GTA share the same world, but that inconsistent geography is always going to put a damper on everything. But you could definitely still make the argument that between the events of Red Dead and GTA, certain place names or states names may have been switched around, deviating more and more from our American history as time went on. Or you could just be like, nah bruh, and just say that they're two completely different worlds. But for my money, despite the inconsistent geography, I do think there's a case to be made here. So on the plausibility meter, I'm going to rate this theory 3 out of 5. I'm a huge fan of the time traveler and cult connection, so I'm definitely closer to believing that these two games share the same world, but what do you think? Do you think that Red Dead and GTA share the same universe? Is there any other evidence today that we didn't cover that you think might be the smoking gun we've been looking for? Let us know in the comments. I've been your host Jacob, and if you liked this video, be sure to subscribe to The Leaderboard, your home for video game facts. And theories. This was really more of a theory video. There were facts in it though.